All right. So sorry about that, guys. I am late to the party. I just had to finish up watching episode 5. Because I got distracted last night and I had to take care of some things this morning. So I am just waiting for my co-host in the background. I don't know where she's at. Co-host in the background. Co-host in the background. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Sorry about that. I will have my sound up on there we go. Tell us music. Okay, blah blah. Um, let's see. Oh, hi, co-host in the background. Just give me 1 second and we will get moving here. So, just a couple of things before I get started. Is I did realize I listened to my live yesterday from yesterday afternoon. I did realize I was talking super duper fast, and I apologize. I'm going to try to slow down and not talk as fast. And I'm also going to try to stop saying all the time. So there's that. And then also in the description box below, like always, I have the podcast We're Not Done Yet and the YouTube channel Seaview Circle links. So please go check those two channels out. I know that at midnight tonight, which would be on the 30th, I think there's going to be another episode dropped. I don't know who's going to be on it. And then what I'll do maybe is I'll link that episode into tomorrow's live stream. And then that way, whoever, if they want to come and watch, they want to come here and then they want to go watch that episode. So then that way that would be good. Just taking a look at something, just going over to my channel. I just want to see something real quick. My channel, just so that I can look at comments, just to see if they're there, and it shows that I'm live. Yay! Just because I don't know if all my comments are going to show up if there are comments in the live chat. So yes, so there is the description box below is the We're Not Done Yet podcast, the Suju Circle channel, and then also I have my friend Nesfa. If you are interested in New York in the California area, Anaheim, she has a wonderful Nesfa that is opening up, and you can go and get. They have some great 4th of July sales going on. I wish I was in California to get those because Botox it does help with your migraine. So that's another reason why I want to be in California or in Tennessee to get those done. So we are going to get started. So I hope you all are buckled in. This is going to be probably a little bit longer of a live stream than it was yesterday. Just because I do have a lot of notes and I do have to change some of the wording for the tubes of you because they will not accept it. I don't want to get flagged. I don't want to get hit. I want to make sure that this video goes out without a hitch. So that's what we're going to do. So we are going to be going over episode 4, which is entitled The Lie, and then we're going to jump right into episode 5, which is entitled Will the Circle Be Unbroken? So with The Lie, it starts with Sid and Karen at the kitchen table again. Sid is really not paying a lot of attention to Karen. However, uh, hands her a page out of the newspaper. And that's when Karen realizes that there was another situation. I'm just going to call it a situation one that happened in broad daylight. And this was the third one within the last week. Walks in the kitchen I'm sorry. I'm also paying attention to my email because I am expecting an email coming in. Uh, and Diana says that it is scary. And finally see Kenny and Ginger. And Kenny is coming into the house. I think after running, it looks like he has some running clothes on. And Ginger asks Kenny if he's going to be coming home early because of the fact of the situation that is going on in their neighborhood. And Kenny tells Ginger that no, unfortunately, um, she has a recording session that he's expected to go a little bit long, and so he's not going to be home early. And then, well, and then they kind of start to fight about it because Ginger's like, I really want you to be here. I'm so afraid. I really want my husband to be around to protect me and to look after us. And so then Ginger walks out and goes to work, which we learn in the next episode that Ginger is a teacher. I don't think that we really learned that until just recently, so we'll talk a little bit about that in the next episode. And then we go to Gary and Val's house, and they are also talking about the situation. And that's when we realize that it only happened 3 blocks away from the cul-de-sac. And Gary asked Val, what her plans are for the day, and Val says that her and Laura are the only ones around during the day, and Gary says that he really wants them to stick together, and then Gary goes and then to the just to be on the safe side, and then Val says also that they're gonna go help Karen at the community center. Gary then we go to the Avery's and Richard and I take that back. Laura starts to talk about the situation and says that she's really concerned about what's going on in their neighborhood, and then also she is making breakfast. And so Richard is really, she's making breakfast for her husband, but he's not really paying attention to her because Laura's thinking that Richard is talking about the attack, about the situation. However, Richard is actually talking about the stock market and how much money he lost based on what is going on within the stock market. Then Richard starts to complain about the pulp and the juice and the eggs, the fact that they're not done, or the fact that they're fried, not scrambled, or however he likes it. And Laura offers to make him more eggs, and Richard says, no, I have to go. And then Richard asks about his shirts if they were ironed, and Laura gets this look on her face, oh, they're at the dry cleaners, I'm so sorry. And Richard goes, that those are delicates, those need to be handled with care. Laura is getting a lot of the brunt of Richard and being ungrateful, and she just doesn't see any value. So basically, we're seeing Laura go through what Karen went through in the last episode, where she's feeling like unloved, unseen, unheard, and really taken advantage of. I think that's the difference there. I think that Karen didn't think that she was being taken advantage of, but I think Laura thinks that she is in this episode, so I think that that's the difference. Hold on a second. I have a cat that's trying to escape again. Sorry about that. You guys have to deal with that. It's no way. It's something that we gotta deal with, right? So then we see Laura leaving the house, and Val goes up to Laura and is asking, oh, well, what's going on? I thought we were going to do lunch or hang out today. And Laura says, no, I actually have a dentist appointment, so I'm not going to be able to do lunch today. So then Val asked Laura if she could get a ride with Laura to the community center so that, because the medical center is on the way. Well, hold on a second. I think I'm going to have to put him in his kennel. I'm not going to be fine. He might down crying. I got to. Such is the life of the cat. He's very, very simple. Oh. Okay. And I do apologize. I do know that I sniffle a lot, but that's just because I have allergies, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Part of my disorder that I talked about on the ride that I did last night. Okay. So then, like I said, Val asked Laura for a ride to the community center so that she could go help out Karen. And Laura says, sure, come on, I'll give you a ride. So Laura drops Val off. And then as Val goes into the community center to help Karen, we see Laura go towards the medical center, and then she turns around and we find her at the bar. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let me see that now. Yeah, so like I said, Laura does not have a dental appointment, so she goes to the bar instead. And then that's where we see her get a pack of cigarettes and orders a drink. And then someone at the bar buys her a drink. And then we later find, and then she ends up in his apartment. Well, first he shows her a picture that he drew of her and tells her, I've been waiting for you to come back for over a week now. And Laura goes, oh, you have? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I can never forget a pretty face like yours. And then he shows her the picture that he drew of her. And then Laura asked if she could have that one. And then he said, only if you model for another picture. And then that's when they end up in his apartment. He gives her like a small tour. It's a studio apartment that we were in. And he sits her down in front of him, and he sits down, starts to draw, and then he gives Laura instructions to kind of like shake her head. And so Laura does shake her head, and then he comes up to her and kind of messes up her hair and then starts to undress her. And then and then he ends up ripping off her clothes, and then Laura does try to fight him at first, and then he asks Laura, well, do you want to fight or no? And Laura says no, and she finally gives into his into what he wants. I think Laura was put in a very vulnerable spot. I think that she feels awful about what happened. She feels scared. She feels confused. But that in her mind, she realizes that because she didn't fight, that there would be no case against this guy. So, however, when Laura does get home, she's just like all upset and concerned and worried and afraid. And then Val does see Laura come home and run in the house, and then that's when we see Laura upstairs. And then about 15 minutes, and shooting time, and about 2 minutes later, we see Richard pull up, and Richard starts to look through things and is looking for a file or a teaspoon or something, and then he goes upstairs and asks Laura about it, and then he sees Laura in the bathroom and just kind of like just in shock, she can't move, she can't talk, she can't cry. So then Richard takes her and leads her to the bed, puts her on the bed, and then covers her up in a blanket. And then he calls the doctor and the police, and then they come to the house and then they talk to her. And then we later see that the neighbors come over to support Laura. And then Richard comes downstairs and says, before that, they say, well, maybe we should make dinner for the Ubers because of the situation. And so they all agree to do that. And then once they agree to do that, then that's when Richard comes down and they all ask, well, how's Laura doing? And she goes, wow, I can't believe this. It's all my fault. I can't believe that I wasn't at home. If I would have only come home sooner, if I didn't stop on my way home, then this wouldn't have happened. But Richard doesn't know the whole story, that it did not happen in his house. It happened somewhere else, and probably with another guy, with a different guy than the one that is doing all these situations within their neighborhood. And then, I'm kind of skipping through this because I kind of know what the episode is about, so it's like I'm not even reading my notes. I'm just kind of going through it. So then. Oh, the one part that I did forget to mention is that before Laura gets home, Val and Karen arrive back to the cul-de-sac, and Karen invites Val in. Diana comes home, and Karen asks, "Whoa, is that a friend that you came home with?" And Diana's like, "No, I hitchhiked." And Karen was not happy about this because of the issues that are going on in the neighborhood and the fact that, Diana didn't know who this person was that gave her a ride home. And so therefore she yelled at Diana and actually grounds Diana because of this. And then Val doesn't end up going inside and then just goes back home. And then that's when Val sees Laura pull up. So that's what I get from that reading my notes, since I kind of went off script there for a little bit. So Val waters her plants and Laura rushes home, and then we'll go back to. Oh, and Richard comes home and knows that Val saying that, no, you should teach my wife how to park, but he didn't know at the time what was really going on. So I talked about how he put her in bed, covered her up, called the doc and the police. They came over. Then we see Karen and Valen and Ginger over at Laura's house talking about making dinner for the Ubers. And then Richard comes downstairs, starts looking at the locks and the windows and the doors, trying to figure out how this guy got in the house. However, Richard doesn't know what really happened. And honestly, I don't think he ever figured out what happened with Laura. I don't think she ever told him, is what the sense I get. Does that sound right, co-host in the background? Like, I just feel like she wasn't aware of what happened, and I don't think we ever find out exactly why he's not aware of what happened. And then after that, we see Karen, Ginger, and Val. Karen comes in, I guess, after delivering the dinner to the Ubers, and they ask how Laura is doing, and Karen says that the doctor gave her a sedative, so she's probably sleeping calmly. However, and then okay, like I said, I'm just kind of like going by what I think I know. And then Val knows that Laura is not being honest about the situation because she saw Laura come into the house. And then Val did ask Richard if he wanted her to stay, and he said no. And then that's when we go into the kitchen scene, and then that's when we go into the kitchen, and then we see Karen come back in, and then Ginger asked how Laura was, and Karen said the doc gave her a sedative, and is probably sleeping. I think that at this point, one of Karen's soonest speeches was almost to start, and then Diana rushes upstairs because of the whole situation, and then that's when Karen tries to go after Diana, and then Kenny comes to pick up Ginger, and she just hugs him. Ginger comes in and hugs Kenny and says, "Oh, you're home. I'm so glad that you're home. You're home." And then that's when Karen does go upstairs to comfort Diana, and Diana tells Karen that she is not a baby and that, this could have happened to her. And Karen goes, "Yes, it could have." And that's why, basically we get the impression that that's why Diana was in trouble with Karen because of that hitchhiker. Because we don't know who they're getting a ride with, and that's unsafe. And then Diana asks, "How come?" What was it? Diana wants to know why it's such an awful feeling, and Karen tells Diana that it is a terrible distortion of something that is so beautiful, and that the lovemaking is a beautiful thing and should be done between two people who love one another and then find comfort in one another, as opposed to what Laura and the other women went through. And then Diana says that she thinks she understands, and then Karen says, "Well, even if you don't understand right now, you will someday." Kenny goes outside to be with Sid and Gary. They talk about the situation, and they feel guilty and helpless about what happened. Sid wants to go out and patrol the neighborhood and be a vigilante about this. However, there's nothing that they could really do in this situation. Next, we are in the Avery bedroom, and Richard climbs into bed with Laura and is extra careful and tries to talk to Laura, but Laura doesn't want to talk. But Richard tells her that they are going to catch the guy and throw the book at him, and that's when Laura says that she doesn't want Richard to talk, and that's where that scene ends. And it's the next morning in the Avery house in the kitchen, and Laura is doing chores while Val comes in, and she apologizes to Laura. Laura gets a call to go down to the police station to identify the person that she was in the apartment with. And then Val asks Laura if she wants her to go with her, and Laura said yes. And so they all went down to the station and they met Richard there. And then they were just kind of waiting until it was Laura's turn after another witness walked out. And then Laura heard what the witness said and said, "Oh, I knew that guy had a scar on his face." And so when Laura went to identify the guy, at first she didn't want to look because I think she knew that she was going to be kind of caught off guard. But then that's when she said that it's the guy that had the scar. And then that just so happened to be the same guy that the previous witness identified. However, as Val and Richard and Laura were walking out, they see the lieutenant and the suspect walk out of the police station, and Richard asks about, "Hey, what's going on here? How come he's leaving?" And the lieutenant says, "Well, it's because he has an ironclad alibi. He was at another police station giving an, answering their questions from, I want to say 12 o'clock until 4 p.m. So they couldn't place him at the location as to when it happened." And then Richard runs through the timeline again and asked Laura, "Are you sure about the timeline?" And Laura said yes. And then, however, Val tells Richard the truth, kind of tells Richard the truth, and you can tell that Laura is not happy. However, she doesn't blame Val because I think Laura knows that Val can't tell a lie and that she doesn't like to lie. So therefore, I think that Laura does respect that out of Val, but I think she is also hurt because she's realizing that her situation is not going to be a secret for very much longer. And so they locked eyes, they both start to cry, and so on and so forth. And then we are at the Ubers, and they're having dinner, and Laura is acting like nothing is wrong. Her hair is up, she's wearing a beautiful dress. And then all of a sudden, and then she sits on Richard's lap. And then all of a sudden, their son Jason comes back out to the porch with a picture that was drawn by the guy in the apartment. And Richard asked Laura if he could have it and put it up in his office. And she goes, "No, you can't have it. No, no." And then she rips up the picture. And then the next scene, we see Karen, Gary, and Val are sitting on the sidewalk curb, discussing the situation and what they could do to help Val. And this is also in front of Karen's house and also the ice cream truck. But they don't know, Karen doesn't know how to help out. And then Diana walks up with change from the ice cream truck. Ice cream. I put that in there because I was craving ice cream at the time. However, Val wants Laura to come to them when she is ready because Val kind of knows that what Laura is saying isn't actually really true. So Val says that, Laura will come to them when she is ready, and Karen suggests that they take Laura to lunch the next day. And then Val reluctantly agrees. They ask Richard if lunch would help, and Gary suggests therapy, and Karen says no. What Laura needs now is female friends because, let's face it, it's a female situation or a female experience. Val then suggests that Laura needs more time, and again, I think this has something to do with the fact that Val knows exactly, doesn't know the whole situation, but she knows that Laura is not being 100% honest. Gary and Val talk about how uncomfortable Val is with the Laura situation, and Val tells Gary that Laura needs to work it out for herself. And then we are now in Karen and Sid's bedroom, and then Karen asks what they were going to talk about, and Sid is like really clueless, and he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, when we take Laura to lunch now, what are we going to talk about?" And she goes, "You're going to talk about what you always talk about." So again, the nonchalant of it all. Of Sid, I just can't stand that. I can't stand the nonchalant of Sid's character, and again, I don't know if it's Sid the character or if it's the actor. Co-host in the background, what do you think? Do you think it's Sid the character or Don Murray the actor? I just don't know. I just can't put my finger on it. And then Sid goes to the bed. They're still talking about the situation. And again, Karen is like, "Well, how come you're so blasé about it?" And Sid is like, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Well, it just seems like you really don't know what to say to us." And then Sid pulls, okay. And then Sid pulls, yeah, and then so Sid is with no conviction, and she says, what you always talk about. Sid says that if Laura wants to talk about what happened, then they will talk about what happened. Sid says that time will help her, and Karen says that she wants Laura to know that they are there to help her. And Sid says that Laura knows that they are, and she is wounded, and that she does need time. And then Karen asks again, "So what are we going to talk about?" Sid repeats and says what you always talk about. Then he pulls Karen into bed, still not the same chemistry as Mac, but just a little bit better. And that's really what I'm reading on is the let's see, and I lost hello? Co-host in the background, are you there? Is saying that hold on, let me take a look. Something's going on. Am I still live? Hold on, let me see. One watching, okay. Mm, I don't know what's going on. It's saying that I have 0 watching. So co-host in the background, if you're there, I hope you're still there. Um, let's see. Well, still not the same chemistry as Mac, and that's really what I'm looking for. Is the fact that it's just showing. Okay, it's just showing that there's no one watching, so I'm not exactly sure if that's a YouTube thing or if that's a streamer thing. I'm not sure. Um, So still not the same chemistry as Mac, and that's really what I'm looking for. I don't know about anybody else, but that's where I'm at. I'm at wanting the Karen and Mac of it all. Karen tells him he is right, and then Sid pulls her closer and kisses her on the head. And again, I think that's with the times of the show and the censorship to where they can't really show a lot of what they were able to show with Karen and Mac. I mean, because if you think about it, Karen and Mac started in the early 80s and then it continued on into the run of the show. So therefore, they had um, a lot more flexibility with the censorships, and we'll talk a lot about that when we get to those episodes and to those scenes. So I don't know about you, co-host in the background, but that's what I'm looking for. Oh, and then Laura. Okay. And then we are back in the Avery bedroom, and Laura starts crying, and Richard holds her. And just Laura just says, I just don't want to talk about it, and just tells Richard not to talk, and he rolls over and holds her in his arms. And then the ladies are at lunch. Karen is impressed by Val's skills in helping with whatever. I don't think it's really known what Karen is working on. All we know is that she's volunteering at the community center, and that Karen is impressed with Val's skills with the envelopes and putting things together. And then Laura said that, she wants to take a cooking course and then possibly come down to the community center to help out as well. And then she was in his apartment. And then that's when she decides that she wants to leave right away. And then she runs out, and then she locks eyes again with this guy. And then Val runs after her, and Val looks at the guy, and he's like, "Who is this dude? Because you identified another dude at the jail. Who is this guy now?" And so Val drives Laura home, and Laura rushes inside the house, and then follows her in and gives her car keys because I guess Laura drove them there, and then Val drove Laura's car home. And then it is implied that Karen pays for the check. And then again, that's when we see Laura. Oh, wow. I thought this was going to be a long episode, but I'm already almost done. Um, so again, we see that Laura rushes in and Val runs in after her. And then Laura goes to the steps and sits down. Val, and this is where Val and Laura's friendship, I think, starts to blossom a little bit more. Like I said, it's the Karen and the Val of it all that their friendship is such a strong bond. But I think that this is where Laura and Val's friendship begins to blossom as well, because they have a heart to heart about what really happened. Val offers her support and tells Laura that, I don't want to know what happened. You don't have to tell me. I don't want to know. But don't you think you owe it to yourself to be honest about what really did happen? Uh oh. Okay. My StreamYard is blinking in and out, and after reviewing my video yesterday, I'm not exactly sure why I am blinking in and out. So, I am going to go to another website real quick. Bear with me, co-host in the background. I am going to go to a different. Okay, I think. Where is my StreamYard? Okay, so. Just bear with me because my StreamYard is glitching and I don't know why. I think I lost it. Okay. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Listen. Hello? Hello? Ah. Am I back? Okay. I think. Okay. And it's not breaking up. I need to restart my Chromebook after all because it's showing the bubble is not moving. So I might have to start my Chromebook. So I will be right back. So co-host in the background, I will be right back. I'm going to leave the StreamYard up. I can come back in. For those of hello, let me try this. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, hold on. Hey, co-host in the background. I am going to see if I can. Oh, okay. Hello. I'm just making sure that my bubble goes in and out. That's oops, oops, 7. Oops. Six, 8, 0, 1, 6, 8. Okay, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get started back. Co-host in the background. I think I left off about where Val and Laura had their heart to heart, and the fact that Val knows that Laura wasn't telling the truth. Okay, we're back on track now. I see the little bubble popping. Great, perfect, wonderful, glorious. Um, Hi to the third person. I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to go back to the beginning. I'm almost done with episode 4. So then that's when Val and Laura really have their heart to heart. That's when they start to bond and become closer. And then Val does offer support. However, she doesn't want to know what what Laura really went through. She doesn't need to know. And so Val just Val more, like I said, have a heart to heart. And this is kind of where I feel for Laura. Just because I didn't put two and two together until I rewatched this episode um for this breakdown. Um but Laura tells Val about the loss of her mom and the fact that she lost her mother when she was 12 years old. Well, that's the same age that I lost my dad, so I kind of feel connected to Laura at this point. Um, and however, she felt that she wasn't seen, she wasn't heard, she wasn't really loved by her family. She was, just kind of there. However, she did have a close relationship with her mom, and that's kind of how I felt too. Even though I had all these surgeries going on, that's kind of how I felt about it. And then after that, after that conversation, Val tells Laura, I know you got it in there to do the right thing. And so Laura goes, yes, okay, I will. And Val goes, good girl. I kind of didn't like that line because I was kind of like talking to a dog almost, but I know that's not what it was supposed to do, but that's how it sounded. Um, so then, so I can still relate, although I can still relate to Karen a lot more than I can Laura, but that's where I can relate to Laura on that aspect of the loss of her mom. And she talks a little bit about that in the next episode, which the the continuing oddity of it all kind of didn't happen in the next episode, and I'll explain why. Um, and again, I had to be strong, kind of like why I had to be strong for my mom because I was the backbone after my dad died with all my surgeries. Um, and then at that, and then when Laura was putting Richard through law school, that's when she felt important that she was taking care of someone. However, now she feels like she's just left out again, and it's Jason and Richard that are kind of the main people of the family. And that kind of plays into the next episode as well. We'll kind of see that in the next episode. Um, and then and again, I feel more like Karen more so than Laura, but in this aspect, I feel a lot like Laura. And then Laura does get lonely, and then that's when um, Val is hurt by Laura's pain, and Val can see the pain in Laura's eyes. However, she tells Laura to do the right thing, and then that's when Laura goes to call the police. However, Richard calls her instead and tells her that they caught the guy, and it was the guy that Laura identified at the jail the other day. However, so then Laura does end up calling the lieutenant back and tells her, that wasn't the guy, and the lieutenant said, I didn't think so. And the lieutenant says, should we be looking for another guy? And that's when Laura said no, because I think that she wasn't there. She didn't want to put everyone through that. She just wanted to hold that to herself. And then when Richard calls, Richard tells Laura that he's going to take them all out to dinner, and that's when Richard and Laura kind of fall into the same pattern. And then Richard ends up ordering for Laura because everything that Laura wanted to order, Richard had a problem with. And this goes into I think, the real life of, is it Jason Pochette, where he is a cook and he does meals and he knows all about it. So that's where he felt like he's a little bit more of a hot and trot with the food, I think. If that's a saying, I just made that up. So Laura feels embarrassed about the situation, and then Karen orders exactly what Laura wanted to order, doesn't care, and then everyone else is just like, "What just happened? I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. I just want to move the table." And then that's when Laura gets up, walks away, and then another guy comes up to her with a lighter and lights her cigarette. Val looks at Laura looks at Val, and Val is kind of disappointed because then she realized exactly what happened. And then that's the end of the episode. So, co-host in the background, other than other than the break that we had with me falling off and the internet shutting down, how was this episode breakdown? Was it okay? Was I talking too fast? I kind of feel like I was. I wasn't expecting to get through that episode quickly, but we did. So let's talk about the individual couples. Again, we see very little of Kenny and Ginger other than when Kenny comes in and, at the beginning of the episode, then at the middle of the episode where Kenny comes to Karen's house, and then again at the restaurant. So I really don't have a lot to say on Kenny and Ginger at this point, so we'll just go on to Sid and Karen. They weren't really a big part of this episode either, but there's just some distance there. Oh my gosh, I just muted myself again. So there is some distance there, so I'm not exactly sure why. I'm feeling that co-host in the background. Do you feel that way? I feel like there's just distance, and I just don't feel the connection or the chemistry there. Um, and the fact that I think the major scenes for me, the major scene with Karen is Karen and Diana's, um, interactions during this episode, and we'll see that a little bit more in the next episode as well. Um, and then with Gary and Val, I think that Gary was a big comfort to Val, and I think that in this episode you can really see how much Gary is trying to change for Val and just be there with her and comfort her and just almost wants to hold her. Oh, you know what? I think I'm behind on the iPhone. Wants to hold her and comfort her and make sure that everything is okay. Um, and then with Laura and Richard, I think in the beginning, Laura was kind of feeling like how Karen was, and then that's when she went to the bar, met that guy, got into a situation that she didn't need to get herself into, and then she, and then Richard did comfort her after the situation happened. However, Laura wasn't 100% honest with her about it. And then we go to, and then how it all plays out with Laura going to the jail. Like, Richard was really supportive of her up until the dinner, up until they go out for dinner. And then that's when Richard kind of went back to his old ways, kind of making Laura feel unseen, unheard, unloved. Her thoughts and feelings were not being listened to. What she wanted to, she couldn't, for goodness sake, she couldn't have what she wanted to do. My goodness. So there's that. I really, other than the fact, I mean, I have worked with people who were in these situations at a shelter and at a center. So therefore, I really wanted to be very careful of what I said about Laura and the situation and what all went on with that. Um, just because I don't want to victimize the victims. So there's that. And then I really liked the interaction with Diana and Karen in Diana's bedroom. So, co host in the background, do you have any thoughts or concerns about this episode? Do you want to add anything? Am I on track? Am I, debriefing this episode okay? And then while I wait for her, which she is responding right now. Oh, and again, I just want to say, you know, I have a co-host in the background. She's messaging on Facebook Messenger, so you don't see her in chat. That's why. And I think okay, good. All right. So I'm not just talking to myself. I do have someone in the background that's helping me. So yeah, really about Warren Richard. I mean, you can see it from day one how the fact that the relationship is not solid and the fact that he doesn't appreciate her. So you can kind of see that, and I think that at this point, I think that the writers should have broken up Laura and Richard from the get go. Like I think that they could have done a lot more with Laura's character, with the character of Laura, and keep her on for longer than what they did. Although I do get why they did what they did. In the later seasons, and we'll talk about that. Those are going to be hard episodes to talk about. Um, okay, that's not anything I have to get right now. Just bear with me. I'm waiting either on an email or a phone call about a work situation. Yes, I'm doing this while I'm at work. So what? Um. Anyways, so that's that. Let me. I have this time. I have my scenes queued up by the episode, so it should be easy to find it. So we are going to pull up my scenes now. Not planning. All right, we are going to go to this scene here. Take it 10 minutes. Okay, hold on. So this time I had the scenes queued up. How about that? Co-host in the background, so we don't have to wait for it. Haha. And I don't think these scenes will be as long as yesterday's scenes. But I will be stopping this one because it is a little bit long. And we'll do this will be under YouTube's fair use policies, and this is incomparable Karen McKenzie, Michelle Lee, talking with her on-screen daughter, Diana.
Sweetie, I promise. She'll be okay. How can you tell me she'll be okay? I'm not a baby. No. I know you're not. I'm a young woman, and it could have happened to me.
So I'm going to stop it here because I just want to say that this is something that I wish that my mom and I would have talked about. We didn't really have a talk about, this type of subject, and I think a lot of that had to do with the surgeries and everything that I went through. Diana's 15 in this episode, and I basically learned everything at the school. Or my friends, or even my brother. I didn't really have a conversation with my mom about all this. So, this is where I think I relate to Karen, where I crave the stability of Karen of it all. So, again, this is under YouTube's fair use policies.
Yes, it could. I couldn't stand it. I know I'd die if something... No. But... Well, I don't suppose I have to say anything more.
No, Mom, you don't.
That's good.
Mom.
Yeah.
Pause it right there. The fact this says something about the censorship of the 70s, the late 70s, because they really didn't bring up the actual situation, and it wasn't really named while Karen was talking with Diana about it. And I think in the later seasons, it is brought up, and it's brought up, and again, that had a lot to do with the censorship of that time, like in the later seasons. They were able to have like a whole better episode on this subject than what this is. Not saying that this is a bad episode, but I think that this is very dry episode about it, and it just wasn't really. I don't want to say it wasn't handled well. I just think that they kind of had their hands tied with how they dealt with the subject back in the 70s. Co-host in the background, is that, wouldn't you say that that would be true? That, like, this is something that the censorship had a way to deal with this back in the 70s as opposed to the late 80s, early 90s when that other episode aired. I think that that's a true testament of the time. Yeah. Okay. And again, this is under YouTube fair use policy. And again, this is Karen and Diana in Diana's bedroom.
Why is it such an awful feeling? I mean, just thinking about it.
It's a terrible distortion of something that should be tender and private.
A distortion?
Yes. Making an act of love an ugly and violent thing is a distortion. Lovemaking between a man and a woman is
Again, this tender moment between Diana and Karen really makes me clear that I wish I had that with my mom. Not saying that my mom did anything wrong. It's just that it was just a different relationship, and it was a different type of relationship just because of everything that I went through. So we never really had these talks. And I think, again, too, not only with the fact of all my surgeries, but also with the fact of my dad dying, a little bit of, with my dad passing, I think that had a lot to do with it, along with all the surgeries, because, again, a little bit of my mom went with my dad. Like, I literally lost a little bit of my mom after my dad passed. And again, this is under YouTube fair use policy.
very, very beautiful thing. It really is.
I think I understand.
Well, even if you don't understand now, you will.
That is a very, very tender scene. I love that scene. That is one of the best scenes in the whole episode. I couldn't play really any other scene, I don't think, with the tubes of you and their policies. So I just wanted to play like a really, really tender moment between Diana and Karen. And I think in the next episode, there's also another tender moment that I will, I don't know if it's a tender moment, but it's a moment. Kind of a tender moment, but we'll get there. So the psychology of it all is, I think that we are at a very different time and place than we were back in the 70s. We're in 2026. And so therefore, this is handled differently in today's world. And even when, this topic was brought up again in the later episodes, is handled very, very differently is talked about more open. I think the actual act is named in the description of the episode, if I'm not mistaken. I just haven't gotten that far. I just haven't seen those episodes yet. Again, I think that's past season 9. I'm not 100% sure. Co-host in the background, if you are aware of what that is past season 9, I just haven't made it past season 9 yet. Well, really part of season 10. I think I made it to where Mac brings home Paige and Michael and Paige's friend from Mexico. I think I made it to that point. But anything after that, I don't remember. So yeah, so my MSW brain is like, okay, we're at a different time. We talk about it now, just like we talk about a lot of different topics in a different way. So, co-host in the background, do you have anything to add? Any concerns, thoughts, feelings, anything like that before we move on to the next episode? This next episode is also a really, it's not as long. I don't think I have as many notes on it. Well, maybe I do. I probably do, but we might get through this a little bit quicker. Alrighty. Okay, so we are going to jump into episode 5, and again, I'm going to pull up my YouTube just so that I can see comments and make sure. Oh, whoops, hold on. There we go. Alright. So I pulled up YouTube. Okay, got all messages. Okay. So we are in episode 5, and the title of this episode is Will the Circle Be Unbroken? Now, this episode has a lot of hard-hitting themes in it, but we don't have to use code words for any of it, I don't think. So that's a bonus. Oh, excuse me. And this episode kind of brings me a little bit by heart. It holds a special place in my heart just because of the characters that we are about to meet as a character. So, episode 5, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? That's one of my favorite songs of all time. Co-host in the background, you know why. So I love that song. I love the Carter family. I love the fact that they'll sing that song. I love the fact, I love it when June Carter Cash sings it. I could listen to it all the time. In fact, I would constantly put it on replay all the time by the Carter family. It's just an amazing, beautiful, wonderful song. And I can almost match Miss Carter Cash's voice. Fun fact: Carter Cash's voice and Miss One's voice. So anyways, we opened with a lady knocking at Val's door, but no one was home, and she kind of peeks in, she continues to knock, she peeks in the window, and there's a cab driver that's sitting out in front of the house, and then we see Karen pull up into the driveway, and then Karen comes over. Yep, and Karen goes over to talk to him, and the cab driver says, I'm trying to tell her that no one's home, but Karen is like, oh, well, I'm neighbors, and I know Val and Gary, and so, and then that's when the lady comes over, and she introduces herself to Karen as Lily Mae Clemens, Val's mother, and Karen is ecstatic to meet her, and she tells Lily Mae that they're not home, and that why don't you come over to my house and wait for them, and so Lily Mae accepts, and then Lily Mae tells Karen that Val doesn't know that she's coming, and that it's a surprise for her, and that Lily Mae has an appointment at about 2, which I don't think is actually true. I don't think Lily Mae did have an appointment. And then Lily Mae asks the cab driver to help her with the bags. And then the cab driver makes a funny joke and says, well, ladies, have we decided what house? And Karen goes, yes, this one over here. So the cab driver helps Lily Mae with her bags, brings it to Karen's house, and then Lily Mae is looking for her billfold, as she calls it, but I think it's a wallet, looking for her billfold, and can't find the money, and so then Karen ends up paying for the cab fare, and then Lily Mae tells her, "Oh, give him something extra for the tip," and Karen is like, "Well, okay," she's kind of not sure about Lily Mae. Then we go into the house, and the music is blaring, and Karen says, "Hey, turn it down, will you?" And then Karen says to Lily Mae that Val works with Ginger at the daycare, and this is where we learned that Ginger is a kindergarten teacher. Like I said in the last episode, we didn't know what Ginger did, and this is when we find out that she's a kindergarten teacher, and that Val helps with preschool or daycare after work. And then Lily Mae asks about Lucy, and it stuns Karen because Karen thought that Lily Mae would know about what happened with Lucy. And so I don't think Karen really knows the background. Karen doesn't know the background about Lucy, and we'll get into that in a later episode, or in a later scene of this episode. And then Karen asks about this funny looking case, and I knew right away what it was. It's an auto harp, and an auto harp is what Mother Mabel Carter used to in the Carter family. And Lily Mae tells Karen that she was supposed to go on tour. I think it was then that I think she does tell Karen at that point that she was supposed to go on tour with the Carter family. And so then Lily Mae tells Karen that, oh, this is an auto harp, and this is what I use to perform my music with. And then this is when I fell in love with the character of Lily Mae. Like, right now, she doesn't have any quality. Like, right now, we don't know the background of Lily Mae and Val, but this is where I fell in love with Lily Mae because she brought the music of the Carter family and that type of music and the country music aspect to the show, which, by the way, when we get there is a nod to a movie about a famous country singer. And if you know, and no, it's not Daddy West. But we'll get there. That's in the later scenes, and this was Karen and Mac. Co-host in the background. I don't know if you know that. And then that's when I fell in love with Lily Mae because she brought the Carter family to the show and just was inspired by them. And so then Ginger and Val are driving home, and Ginger asks about bringing Lucy home, and Val is ready, but Darian is more careful. And then Val asks Ginger about wanting kids, and Ginger says, I'm working on Kenny. And then they both talk about whether or not they're winning over their spouses with it. And in the meantime, over at Karen's house, I don't know why. Oh, okay. With Kenny, and then they talk about how they're both trying to win them over. We all know what that means. And then that's meanwhile I had to pause. I need to stop myself. I almost said it's in the country household. Co-host in the background. I'm just not gonna get away with that. oh my gosh, I cannot believe I said I wanted to say the Mackenzie household. Meanwhile, at the Fairgate household, Lily Mae asks Karen if she wants to to hear a song, and Karen says, "Of course, why not?" And so then, after the scene with Val and Ginger in the car, then Lily Mae starts to sing and pluck the auto harp and sing. Diana's. Okay, I did not go to bed until late last night, so I am getting all mixed up. I do apologize. Karen's children came downstairs while Lily Mae was playing the auto harp, and they were really impressed. And they're like, "Oh wow!" That after Lily Mae was done singing, they're like, "Oh wow, that is so cool." And then Karen invites them all over for dinner because Val may not feel like cooking. And then at that point, Lily Mae asks the children if they knew anything about good country music, and then they rush down to go and talk with her. And then this kind of plays into I thought I forgot about that scene. Okay, we'll get there. Or that's the scene I have. About there. And so Lily Mae asked the children if they know anything about good country music, and then they rushed on to go and talk with her. Like they're really impressed with Lily Mae. And then when Ginger and Val arrive home, Michael rushes out and says, "Mrs. June," and she goes, "What, Michael?" And Michael goes, "Oh, well, we have a surprise at our house." And so she takes them over, and then they over to the Fairgates. And Lily Mae is all nervous, and Karen says, "Oh, you look wonderful. No worries, you look fine." And then Val walks in, and you can see right away that Val is not happy that her mother is there. And Val asks why she is there, and then Lily Mae was like, "Oh my gosh, to see you, of course." And then we jump to the dinner scene at the table at the Fairgates. I don't know why I said the table, but I meant at the Fairgates. And then Gary asked about if she ever toured with the Carters, and Val excuses herself, and Lily Mae is happy to see her as she tells Gary the fact that, she misses her daughter. She wants to spend more time with her. I think to me that Gary and Lily Mae didn't know one another all that well, because Lily Mae was, off running around and trying to fulfill her dream. Again, I apologize. I just have to check my email every so often. And I'm going to check one thing, but I am still here. I'm still talking. I'm just trying to see if this is taken care of. Okay, just bear with me. Oops. So, no, that's not fixed yet. Okay. So then while Val's in the kitchen, she goes into a flashback to when Lily Mae left her and her father. And she says that, young Val was so upset and said something about a song. Like, my mama didn't even sing a song to me. Then Karen walks into the kitchen unexpectedly, and they discuss Val's mother and the fact that, Lily Mae's arrival was not a welcome arrival really for Val. And they discuss Val's mother, and, Karen says, every mother and daughter has an issue, and Val goes, "Well, not like mine." And then Gary and Val bring Lily Mae back to the house, and Val and Gary goes to get the room ready for her. Val tells Gary that she hates her mother, And then we jump to into the Fairgate's house, and uh, Karen wants Diana to load the dishwasher, and then Diana gives Karen a hard time about it, about doing the dishes, and Karen's like, well, I don't care, you need to do the dishes, you need to follow the rules. And then Karen second guesses herself and tells her, no, don't worry about it, I'll do the dishes. And then sends her upstairs to do her homework because Diana said that she has homework that needs to get done. And then Sid asks Karen about breaking her own rules, and Karen says, oh, sometimes flexibility is as important as, the rules are. And then Karen tells her, I had the insights because I'm a college graduate, and then Sid said that he has the too. Then Karen goes into the kitchen, and then she has a flashback to when she told her own mother about Sid. Then Sid comes into the kitchen, kisses her on the neck, and asks if she was alright. And then that's the scene. We don't see anything else. Again, I wanted to see something, more, but again, I guess it's the censorship of it all. Gary and Melinda discuss country music and her career. Melinda asks for Val to stay and talk a while, and the fact that she was going to sing a song for Gary. Val said no when she goes upstairs. While in bed, Val is listening and is feeling mad and sad, and then she has another flashback to when Lily May has to pull her, I guess, out of a school because her father passed away and they couldn't afford the school. And young Val was not happy about it. And then Valerie runs down the stairs and asks why she came to see her. And Val tells Lily May to get a good night. Oh, and Lily May says, oh, to see you, to see how things are going. You're my daughter. I love you. And so Valerie says to Lily May, well, get a good night's sleep and I'll show you around. And then another flashback to when Lily May learned, this part in the scene, it doesn't tell you exactly what happened. Like, there's no dialogue, it's just the music. But you see where young Valerie goes up to the door, knocks on the door. Lily May turns her away, and then that just broke her heart. And then, although she had Lucy in her arms, and then that's when once Lily May turns Val away, then that's when JR's boys come up from behind Val and takes Lucy from her. And then that's when Val woke up in a cold sweat, and Val looks, and then Val ends up downstairs. She's making fritters. I think that's fritters or something. And then she tells Gary that she looks forward to her mother leaving, and that's why that she's gonna keep. She looks forward to her mother leaving, and Gary holds her while they're in bed. Lily May is planning. Val doesn't know this, but Lily May is planning on staying, and she talks about cleaning the room. We see Val in the kitchen cooking fritters, and this is where she's cooking fritters at 4 a.m. in the morning due to Lily May. And Gary walks in, and Val says, I just have to keep her busy. And Gary tries to distract Val, but Val is like, no, I gotta get this done before tomorrow. Because she wants to have company come over. Oh, and Val tells Gary that Laura's going to come over and meet her mother for coffee. And so that is the next scene where Laura comes over for coffee and they talk about Laura's mother. And then again, this is where the continuity of it all is broken because Val and Laura talk about Laura's mother in the previous episode, and that's when we learned that her mother died when she was 12 years old. And now again, Laura is telling Val the same thing, that her mother died when she was just 12 years old. So it's kind of like the continuity of it all is not really there at first in these first couple of episodes. So I guess the writers thought that we needed to know again that Laura lost her mother when she was 12. Um, and then they talk about Laura's mother, and then Laura does have a flashback. I'm not sure if it's in this scene or if another scene. Um, then Lily May asks for a needle and thread, and Val goes upstairs, gives it to her, and Laura has a flashback to losing her sweet mama and going at her funeral and wants her mama to come back to her. And then Lily May comes downstairs and meets Laura. Then Valun and Lily May discuss. Oh, and then Laura left, and then Val and Lily May discuss the coffee and dessert get together that they're going to have together. And Lily May and Val says, "Oh, well, we're going to have for different coffee." And Lily May's like, "No, no, no, that's not for these people. We need to make something else." So Lily May but Lily May suggests that they make a different type of dessert. However, they do make it, and then they test taste it, and it wasn't good. Like you could tell on their faces, it wasn't good. And then, however, Lily May says, "No, it doesn't taste good to us, but it might taste good to them." Um, and then she said that, however, to the others, it will probably taste good. And then we are at the dessert party, and someone found the fritters. I forgot who. I think it was Kenny or maybe Gary. No, I think Gary told Sid, and then Sid goes into the kitchen. Richard comes out of the bathroom and thinks that he got rid of the custard. So it's this whole thing of where everybody's just trying to get rid of the custard without hurting anybody's feelings. But then they find the fritters. Kenny talks about the music business in Nashville, and then he talks about how he's in with the Carter family. However, come to find out, he was actually in the audience, and that's when Mother Maybelle Carter would have everyone sing. so that's kind of how I think Kenny knew that Lily May was putting him on. What do you think, co-host in the background? I think Kenny knew that Lily May was putting him on about that. And so, and it was, will the circle be unbroken? And so then we see that Sid brings Karen a fritter and kind of hides it. And then Lily wants to have her sing along, and she starts writing down the lyrics to pass out to everyone. And then Lily May decides that it's the right time to bring up the past and what they went through. And then this kind of sort of embarrasses Valun, and Valun is trying to stop it so that they don't have a scene. And then Lily May talks about how, again, a little bit like Laura, how she felt left out after Valun was born because her husband loved Valun so much. And then Val leaves the living room because she's so upset, goes into the kitchen, has another flashback again, and this is where we learn a lot about what happened between her and Valun with the baby. You get context in this one. To where the fact that Lily May turns Val away, even though that Val was trying to tell her, look, this is what's going on, I'm in trouble, I need help, you need to help me. And then that's when we see again, JR boys coming to get the baby, and then all of a sudden Val cries out, "Mama!" And then Gary rushes in along with Lily Mae and Lucy, Karen, Sid, and then just like all the actors and actresses in the background come in. And then that's when Valen confronts Lily Mae about what really happened with Lucy. And that's when I think everyone learned exactly what happened with Lucy and why Lucy is not with them at this time. And I wrote down that's when the neighbors on the cul-de-sac learns the truth about why why Lucy is not in the living with Gary and Val. And then so then the party ends. Val is in the kitchen and Gary walks in and she apologizes to Gary and Gary doesn't understand and Val wants to go talk to her mom, but she wasn't ready at that moment. And then this is when we're back at the fair gates. Diana comes down the stairs. She's in her nightgown, and she talks to Karen about how it went, and Karen tells her about the scene about how Val and Lily Mae had a scene at the party, and then they have a conversation about mothers and daughters. And this is where, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, because this is the scene I'm going to play for you guys. Ironically, Diana says that she doesn't want something major to come in between them. You can't see my eyes, but I'm like, really? Because, and we'll learn about that in later episodes. But she goes, I really don't want anything big to come between us. And Karen says that it won't. And Diana says, why not? And she goes, Karen says, because we fight a lot. And then Diana stands up, wants to go to bed, and then Karen says, Diana, sit back down. And Diana goes, why? So Diana sits down, and Karen brushes away her hair, and she goes, because I said so. And so all what Karen wanted to do was give her a big hug and a kiss, and send her off to bed. Which I think is really, really sweet. And then that's when Karen has a flashback to her mother, and when she tells her about Sid, and her mother finally approves of her marriage to Sid. And then Karen calls her mother out of the blue, and it's implied that they have a conversation. And then we're back at the Ewing's house, and Val goes to talk to Lily Mae and apologizes to her and says that she doesn't hate her, but that she hates what happened, and she hates what Lily Mae did to her. And Lily Mae explains to Val that she didn't know the whole story, she didn't know what really happened, and that, she was real sorry about what happened. Lily Mae tells Val that she has nothing but Val. Val walks out of the room and goes downstairs, sits on the couch with Gary, and then that's when Lily Mae comes downstairs and says that she wants to leave, and Valen tells Lily Mae that she didn't care about the fame, but Lily Mae thinks that she wanted her to make it big. And, and then Valen tells Lily Mae that Gary will go to the bank and get her some money so that they can live. Oh, thank you at Loving the Life 123. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. Oh, it's just Vicky, co-host in the background. That's funny. I shouldn't come up with a name. So, anyways, so that's when Darlene says that, they'll go and get some money. Then we are at the, I don't know what Ginger and Kenny's last names are yet, but, we're at their house, at Kenny and Ginger's house, and that's when Ginger has a flashback to a situation that she ended up having with her mom, and it was that she was pregnant and her mom was making a decision for her, and Ginger was like, "No, mom, I want this baby," but they don't talk about it. They don't talk about the situation that's going to happen or the background, but it is implied exactly what happened. Um, and then that's when Ginger goes back into bed with tears in her eyes, and she tells Kenny that she wants to have a baby. And then Val has a baby through her tears. Val and Gary are in bed, and they hear Willie Mae singing, and Gary is holding Val. Val tells him that all she wanted was a mama. She didn't care about the fame and fortune and all that, and her mom making it big. Val goes, and this next day, Val goes into Willie Mae's room and lays her head on her mama. No, I'm sorry, it's not the next day, it's the same night. And lay her head on her mama's lap. And that is so sweet because that's exactly what I did up until until we lost my mom. I would do that, and I was in my 30s. I'm not exactly sure how old Valene was in this episode, but yeah, I still did that. I still wish I could do that. Um, and then that's when we hit the next day, and Garrett asked Val if she's okay, and Val says that yeah, she's okay. And Valene goes upstairs. Willie Mae is packing to go to Nashville to record a demo, and Val was so proud of her and wants to, and ask for money from Gary. And so the next scene is that we see that Valene is seeing Willie Mae off. However, and Val tells Willie Mae that she wants to drive her to the airport. And then that's when Val tells her mom that, she loves her. And her mom just looks at her like, what in the world? Like almost taken aback, like, what? And then she drives off in the cab, and Val waves to her. Val goes back to the room, to the room where Willie Mae was sitting, and she sees the gift that Willie Mae left her, and she picks it up, hugs it tight, and starts to sing the song that her mama used to sing. End of episode. Now, here's a little bit of a background for you that I learned from the podcast of We're Not Done Yet, which is linked in the description box below, so go check it out. I might find that episode and link it so that you guys can go back and watch it. But Miss VanArk went to the same school that, I'm sorry, let me start over. Miss VanArk had the wonderful opportunity to interview Miss Julie Harris for uh, for a article in the paper that was arranged by her father, and come to find out, and Miss Harris was all about it. So they met, and then Val went to the same school that Miss Harris went to for acting skills, because Miss Harris did see a lot of herself in Miss VanArk, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm telling the story correctly, and I don't know, co-host in the background, if you seen that episode where they talk about this and the fact that I think Miss Harris did write a recommendation letter for her for Miss VanArk to go to the same school. So they had that connection. So they knew each other before KnotsLanding. And the directors, producer, casting directors did not know of the background of Miss Harris and Miss VanArk. So when Miss Van Ark found out that Miss Harris was going to play her mom, she was so ecstatic. Like, she had no idea. She was so ecstatic, and that was really special for her. And so they co-host in the background, are you referring to the episode about the reference to a movie that that reflects that is about a famous country singer? I don't know if you know that. I don't know if that's the episode that you're thinking of, that I'm thinking of the reference. Okay. I just saw the message, so that's why. Oh, okay. Oh, you didn't see that episode. Okay, so I will link it. Co-host in the background, I will link it to this episode, so then that way that people can go back and watch that specific episode of We're Not Done Yet. Where I just have to find it. I don't know where it's at. I do know that I did see it, but I just don't know where it's at. I don't know if it's on the earlier ones, because I know it's when Miss VanArk was still filming with them, so I don't know where it's at in the episodes. I just have to find it. So I'll link this so that you can see it. So, but going back to your other comment about I love that episode as well. Are you referring to when I said about the reference to pop culture reference from a movie about a famous singer? I don't know if you know. I want to know if you know, but I don't know if you know. So let me know. Co-host in the background. Let me know if you know what episode that is. So, oh gosh, I forgot what it was. Oh, so anyway, so Miss VanArk was ecstatic about the fact that, Miss Harris was going to play her mama. And I think that Miss Lily Mae did a great job. I think that this was a great way to introduce Lily Mae, and her craziness of it all, her quirks, and kind of see where Valine came from and why Valine is the way that she is. And so, we're gonna get into. I don't think I really need to break down this episode all that much. I think it's very self-explanatory. It's all about mothers and daughters, and I kind of talked about mothers and daughters in my last episode, or not in my last episode, but in my introduction that I did last night. So I'll so go check that out. It's a live that I did last night. And then, so we'll just jump into the couples. So we just see a little bit more Kenny and Ginger, but with more towards the end of the episode, at the party and more towards the end of the episode. Just bear with me. I want to see if this is a phone call that I'm waiting for. Okay. More towards the end of the episode. So it's kind of like they're placing Kenny and Ginger in the episode so that they have something to do, so that in the later episodes of season 1, you know about them. But I really don't have a lot to say about them as a couple, other than the fact that, Kenny also kind of seems aloof to Ginger, and we'll learn a little bit more about that and as to why in later episodes. And then we really didn't see a lot of Laura and Richard in this episode either. It was just again at the party. I think the most of what we saw of Laura was when Laura was introduced to Lily Mae. So this episode, it really wasn't about the men. It was about the women, about the mothers and daughters. And I think that that's really special. And I'm thankful for that episode because it really did shed a light and talk about the mother and daughter relationship of it all. hold on, I'm gonna review a comment and see if they're at one, two, three, dot S1. Did you know what episode I'm referring to about and what movie I'm referring to about the pop culture reference? So I think Lily May really set the stage for the pop culture references of country music moving forward. Because I mean, we'll have Lisa Hartman Black coming into the show as well twice, and then so it's really all about the mothers and daughters of it all in this episode, and I think that that's extra sweet, and I think that that's why this episode has such a great special place in my heart, just for that reason. So, and we just see a little bit of Karen and Sid, and again, it's the chemistry of it all for me. I think we'll see a little bit more in the later episodes, and I'm hoping that the chemistry will come. Or which. Oh my gosh, I wish I was going backwards, but going backwards really doesn't really doesn't help. I want to go backwards now because I don't think you know. I don't think you know. So it's really about the mothers and daughters of it all, and I think that this episode really showcased that. And I'm not exactly sure when this episode aired, if it was around Mother's Day. I don't think so, because of when the pilot aired. So, anyways, and I love the flashbacks of the audio, the flashbacks of the ladies in this episode. I think that it really brings that home. And all that jazz. So I really don't have a lot to say other than the fact that I'm glad that maybe Darwin and Lily May is moving forward and we'll start to build a relationship, and I think we'll see that coming forward. I'm not sure if Lily May comes back in this season or if it's the next season, but she does come back, and this is a great way to introduce her. So I don't know. Co-host in the background, are you still there? I see that I'm the only one here now. So I guess I will go ahead and play my the scene that I want to follow up on. Oh, okay. Because we're saying like 1 viewer watching. Okay. So I'm gonna see this real quick if I have any notification on Insta. Yep. Nothing new. Oh. Oh wow. Sorry, I just got distracted by something. I apologize. Because I pulled up my phone, so therefore I was just checking a couple of things. Let's see here. Okay. Alright, so now I'm gonna go to the soon and soon. So here we are. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up. Oh, wrong episode. Sorry, not that one. This one. Okay, here we go.
I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize.
Okay, this is where I wanted it. Can you hear it, co-host in the background?
Did you have a good time? What happened?
Oh, Val and her mom had a
Okay, I think you can hear it.
Why?
Who knows? You can never tell what happens between a mother and a daughter. What comes between them?
We fight a lot, you and I.
I know.
Okay, so if you seen some of the hold on a second. Oh, okay. So if you've seen some of the newer episodes, like after this will be very ironic. Co-host in the background, if you have anything to say. This next part of this scene is going to be very ironic moving forward.
I would never like us to be like that.
Oh,
Some
sorry, this is under YouTube
fight a
for
lot.
You never tell what happens
YouTube fair use. This is under YouTube fair use policy.
between a mother and a daughter. What comes between them?
We fight a lot, you and I.
I know.
I would never like us to be like that. Something big between us.
We won't,
Why?
because we fight a lot.
I guess I'll go to bed now.
Oh, yeah?
That's where I think that this scene is very ironic, and I don't know, co-host in the background, if you know why, or if you, I know that you've seen probably all episodes, but this scene right here is very ironic, and I wonder if they had a plan in the future to do something with this, and that's why they put this scene, put that line in the show. And again, this is under YouTube's fair use policy.
Yeah. Sit yourself right back down here.
Why?
Because I say so. Now get.
I'm gonna let this play out just a little bit more. I wanted the Karen and Diana scene, but I think that this scene is really a full circle moment. This next part here. So again, this is under fair use.
Anyway, what's his name? Sid what? Where's he from? Oh, my. What do you have in common? I just don't understand, Karen. Why? Because I love him. All right. Come along, then. I guess we'll have to make up a guest list.
I love that. Like, you were half expecting for Karen's mom to kind of go off on her about it, but then at the end, I just love the fact that she finally approved of her marriage. Like, it's almost like you weren't expecting that. And so the fact, and then I know that I'm only doing the audio, but you can see Karen smile after she thinks about that. And then this is what happens next. And again, this is under YouTube's fair use policy.
Hi. I know it's late, but I just felt like calling. Oh, no reason. How are you, Mom?
All right, so right there, I kind of get the meaning of the episode name now. Will the circle be unbroken? And it kind of like focuses on all the mothers and daughters and how mothers and daughters, it's a full circle. You have your mother, then you have, like, for those who have daughters, and then you have, you become a mother after you become of a daughter, and then the daughter is like a younger version of the mother, and then eventually that daughter will have children, and who knows if the daughter will have a girl or not, but it's kind of like a full circle. So if you did it, I think that's where the writers are talking about, will the circle be unbroken? And it's kind of showing that no matter what, the circle can never be unbroken between mothers and daughters. And when we get to when we get to older scenes, we'll I'm sorry, when we get to newer episodes, and I think I want to say it's in seasons 5 and 6, we'll see that a lot more, with the whole mother daughter situation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that then. Hold on one second. I'm trying to. So, co host in the background, do you have anything else to add about mothers and daughters, and if I got the implication correctly with the whole will the circle be unbroken reference, and why I think they named that they named that video. Um, and also, I still haven't heard from you if you know what biopic that I'm referring to, where where a pop culture reference is going to come from. I don't know. Haha. Anyways, so we're almost at 2 hours. Like I said, today is gonna be here she is. Let's see. Let's see if it's yes. A bond between mother and daughter is precious. Now again, and I want to say this about my mother-daughter my relationship with my mom. I do talk a lot about it, but our relationship was a lot different. And I think had we not lost my mom at such a young age, that we probably would have had some of this after I was done with surgeries, because I could foresee myself going through surgeries and becoming a lot more closer, because we were working on our relationship, because we didn't always get along. I love my mom. My mom loved me. She loved to take care of me. I loved to take care of her. But it was a very, very different type of relationship. And again, I think it goes back to the fact that where I had that, where I had to become a parent for a while, and I had to grow up way too fast. Like I said, I had an adult brain before I was an adult, before I was a teenager. So therefore, I think that, and there was a lot of that there too. So co-host in the background, were you going to say something about that biopic? Because I saw you chatting there. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Do you know what movie that's from? Do you know what movie I'm talking about, or no? Because I think if you don't know, I think that's going to be even more fun. I don't know the name of the episode, but you don't. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. I cannot wait to get to that episode. Oh, cannot wait to get to that episode. You'll know it when I say it when we get there. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Okay, co-host in the background, do you have anything else to say? Thoughts, concerns, questions? Because we are at about the 2 hour mark. We're almost right at 2 hours. Yeah, do well, because it's going to be high. It's going to be like bold, and I'm going to say it so loud that you're going to be like, what? I had no idea. And I also have to say that it's between Karen and Mac. So that's even better. It's the Karen and Mac of it all. So. Anyway, so I think I'm going to end it here. I want to say thank you to my co-host in the background. And also don't forget to now I continue going back and rewatching all the episodes and trying to find it. But I don't know. I think it'll be more fun for you to be surprised. For when we get there. Yeah, don't watch it. Don't go back and rewatch it. No, I want to surprise you because I think you'll love it. So don't forget to. I don't think I told you guys to do the YouTube things, as Emily G. Baker would say. Don't forget to do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share. Exactly. Thank you. YouTube things, as Emily G. Baker says. Subscribe, like, and share this video out. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to check out my description box where there is a link where the is a link to the We're Not Done podcast and the CView Circle channel. And I'm also gonna go find that We're Not Done Yet podcast episode where Ms. VanArk talks about the Julie Harris of it all and how all that came, so that you guys can clip it or so that you guys can go back and watch it. I just have to find out what episode that's in. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and maybe I'll come back on and do another live stream like I did last night. I was just up, I couldn't sleep last night, so I just hopped on, wanted to do an introduction. I didn't even notify my co-host in the background, but I just did it just to do it. And I went get on here and talk about the connection of country music and all that in my life. So, anyways, I hope you all have a great day and hold on. Listen, co-host in the background is checking something. Oh, no. What, the episode that I did last night? The live that I did last night? Oh, no, okay. Anyways, so you guys have a good day, and I will maybe talk to you later, or I will see you tomorrow for episodes 6 and 7. And I think we're going to do this pretty quickly. And again, we're not going to do 10 episodes. We're going to do one episode at a time once we get to season 4. We just got to get through. That's why I'm doing seasons 1 through 3. I'm doing 2 episodes at a time, just so that we can get to season 4, where there's a lot more meat, a lot more context, and a lot more substance. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and have a great week if I don't see you. Bye.